video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel and welcome to the week, welcome to Monday. Today I want to run through a bunch of charts for you because things have gotten to that point where, at least from my perspective, we should start to expect fireworks from Bitcoin and from the crypto space. So I'm going to show you everything that I'm looking at that makes me think that is the case. And then we're going to get a little bit speculative, right? A little bit crack pipe Monday-ish. It's been a while since we've done anything like that on a Monday morning. But I want to talk today about Blackrock forking the Bitcoin chain. So stick around, we'll do some charts as always, and in the meantime, hit that like button and let's get into this. I first proposed this all the way back in the early July timeframe, and we were talking about this push up, okay, a big daily cycle low flush out, and then it should be fireworks time. Now, fast forward to today, or not quite to today, but fast forward a bit into the future, and as I'm sure you're well aware, we have all but done this with only the last and final hurrah to the upside left on the table. And the challenge we're all facing over 2025 is figuring out whether when we have this final push, assuming we get it, that's all she wrote, and then we do have an extended bear market decline or some kind of Q1 top. We also have to be open to the possibility, if we see a big push followed by a sharp correction, that there might even be a double pump on the table, right? Which is not a very nice thing to have to deal with. Or the other option, of course, is that we get a standard and normal and to be expected right translated Bitcoin cycle with a 12-month bear market thereafter. Bob Lucas has this as his current base case. Based on the profile of the 60-day cycles and the weekly cycles at this current stage in the 4-year cycle, we could be targeting somewhere around 288k by Q4 of 2025. From a cycle perspective, from a selling the top perspective, this is the one I think we should all be championing. This will make it far easier to get out as close to the top as possible in trading versus, like I said, if we have to deal with something like this, we won't know whether we should have held and we get another pump to a new high. We won't know if that absolutely was the top. We won't know if it's going to do some kind of distribution thing and then it could go up or down from there. Okay, it's super challenging to be able to deal with potentially early tops. But I still maintain that it is kind of unacceptable, at least from my perspective, to just say, well, it's going to do what it's always done. Because in doing so, should we get an earlier than expected top, and there are plenty of arguments to be made both directions, then many people will be blindsided here, assuming that the top is not in for many months to come while something like this unfolds. So it's going to be a super challenging year, right? We all want to sell the top or as close to it as possible, and none of us have any idea whether Q1, Q2, or Q3 is on the table. I really hope this is the case, as I said here. I really hope so, because again, that's a nice number to top at, and it makes selling it much easier when we've got a month 36 high in place, and we know full well that the 4-year cycle low will be coming into focus thereafter. But at least in the short to medium term, I do think the focus should be on this. Are we indeed going to continue to get this push into Q1? There is some seasonality with Bitcoin in which we would expect to see Q1 very bullish and then cool off into kind of March, April timeframe, and that's also where we would expect to see a weekly cycle low form. So on the table here to see a good push, and then I think it's going to get a bit more complicated thereafter. And once more, we've got Bitcoin at the top. You can see it looks very similar to what we did last time, okay? And of course, last time resolved to a big strong push to the upside. So once more, I make the case, this is probably what's coming. Underneath here, we've got the total crypto market cap, excluding Bitcoin and ETH. And you can see A, B, C, D, E, and then off we go. And what have we done so far? A, B, C, D, E, and off we appear to be going. So it's encouraging what I'm seeing so far. But once again, the challenge is it going to be early or is it going to be late? It's very difficult to know, right? Super difficult to know. And there are plenty of arguments, at least from my perspective, to say that we are actually later in this thing than most people want to accept. We may well have already completed 1, 2, 3, 4 and only have the 5th left to go. Now, 5ths can extend, okay? And in commodities, they often do. But make no mistake about it, there's going to be nothing easy about selling the top of this Bitcoin cycle this year. And we're seeing more and more of these targets starting to look a little bit more reasonable than they once were thought to be. We're expecting something around 250k for Bitcoin in 2025. And a lot of people, especially when we were back in this neighborhood, said no way. Remember that whole 5.3 rule or whatever it was that we disproved on this channel? You know, there was many people saying that 85k was going to be the max. Most people thought we weren't getting to 100k. I remember when we got to here, plenty of people sold the top and then were very vocal in my comment section talking about how they were convinced they'd sold the top and this thing couldn't possibly go higher. And now all it takes, okay, is a squeeze up to around 100k and suddenly 250k seems within reaching distance. This is also a log chart and you can connect all of the tops. If we were to hit 250k and touch the top of this trend line, it would make perfect sense from a technical perspective. So super interesting times. But once again, the challenge is going to be, is it going to top early or is it going to top late? You can see here, this is the PPO down the bottom that Tony the Bull illustrates. Once this thing ticks into red, the top is very close, okay? Ticks to red, top is close, ticks to red, top top is close. As you can see, we are slowly but surely approaching where we would expect to see some red bars coming in. So it might be worth keeping an eye on this if we start to see some red bars coming in and they are coinciding with trendline breakdowns, right, third and final angle breakdowns, then I think it will be worth taking note of that. And I also wanted to talk about this because this is doing the rounds at the moment. There's a lot of people talking about FUD and we can speculate on this stuff until the cows come home. This is actually quite a real risk, not necessarily to Bitcoin or the base layer protocol, not necessarily to people that cold store or multi-sig cold store their crypto, their Bitcoin, but for the ETF holders here, this kind of thing that I'm about to show you starts to get really, really fun for those of us that like to speculate. Some people have become increasingly concerned of late. BlackRock might be trying to fork Bitcoin. So picture this, okay? BlackRock's ETF becomes increasingly successful. They suggest some kind of ESG-friendly proof of stake fork, similar to what we saw with Ethereum and its merge to proof of stake. Of course, there will be a small yet vocal minority on Twitter. I will be in this vocal minority when it happens, if it is to happen, that completely oppose this view and will certainly not be adopting the forked BlackRock version of Bitcoin if it is to occur. But the reality is the majority of the ETF holders probably aren't even true Bitcoiners, right? They're probably just people that wanted exposure to this asset class. And BlackRock and the governments could easily adopt this new fork as Bitcoin anyways. And the advice of the vocal minority will fall on deaf ears after just a few months. Now stick with me, okay? Because does this sound like science fiction? Does this sound like speculation? Admittedly, this is quite speculative at this moment in time, but this is a screenshot from the SEC filing prospectus for the iShares Bitcoin Trust. In the event of a hard fork on the Bitcoin network, the sponsor will, if permitted by the terms of the trust agreement, use its discretion to determine which network should be considered the appropriate network. If you want to read this whole thing, you can pause your screen and do so. But the bit I want to highlight next is there is no guarantee that the sponsor will choose the digital asset that is ultimately the most valuable fork. Okay, now this could easily just be them covering all bases. Or if we want to play the let's get super speculative card right here, what if this is the plan all along? You force a ton of money in through the ETFs, they then hard fork it, the ETF holders get left with a hard fork, okay, and they just pocket the original Bitcoin and issue everyone that had the original Bitcoin held via the ETF a new forked proof of stake junk coin, right? This would be one way for them to legally steal most of people's Bitcoin and leave them with some kind of weird Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV or Bitcoin Gold or Bitcoin Core type fork. We've seen many of them. I think Litecoin was another one. And it just wouldn't surprise me because history tends to rhyme and occasionally it tends to repeat. And this to me would be kind of similar to what we saw with the executive order that forced people to hand in their gold all those years ago. And then, of course, they marked the price up massively thereafter after giving everyone pennies on the dollar for it. So it just wouldn't surprise me if they were thinking about pulling some kind of strange thing like this. Now, again, let's be clear. If you hold real Bitcoin on a cold wallet and it's multi-sig cold stored or even just cold stored, then you're immune from this. Sure, if this is to happen, we could probably expect some large volatility. I wouldn't even be surprised if this is something that occurs midway through the bear market and causes that kind of capitulative flush that we tend to see towards the end of a bear market into a 4-year cycle low. And of course, if we're going to play the advocate here and say BlackRock actually has everyone's best interest at heart and has no intention of engaging in foul play here, then maybe, just maybe, this is just one of those statements that has to be in there just in case so they can cover themselves and they actually have zero intention of ever forking the chain. But of course, we only need look to Ethereum to see how badly that merge to proof of stake impacted Ethereum relative to prior cycles. Also, for anyone that says that this screenshot is fake or whatever, there's a link to the prospectus here. You can go and click that in your own time if you're interested. Super wild times. It'll be really interesting to see if they end up doing this huge bait and switch via the ETF. And this is another reason why I suggest people consider gold as another part of the portfolio. I know a lot of us like to think Bitcoin is invincible. It can't possibly go to zero. Nothing bad could ever happen to it. It couldn't possibly be hacked. Nothing could ever break the private keys and that kind of thing. But it has only been here for less than 2 decades, right? It doesn't really have the best proven track record. And I think whilst I am in the camp of people that thinks Bitcoin is probably safe, is probably not going anywhere, is probably invincible, remember there is a non-zero chance that the thing goes to zero and dies forever. And if that's the case, then we're going to want the next best thing, which of course is gold. Meanwhile, gold is experiencing this beautiful technical setup. This is the highest yearly close ever for gold. And this target of around 10K from North Star, I still maintain is going to be conservative. I really think nobody's targets for gold are high enough. And I know it's a very, very unloved thing. Okay, I understand that. And there are going to be some big chops and volatility and a few crashes on the way up to these big targets. But I only need, at least for me, to look at the central banks buying record quantities over the last few years to know that they see what I see. And that is a big, strong push for the precious metals. So lots of speculation, lots of poking fun at random things. And again, we're kicking off Monday with a typical Camel Crackhead Monday episode. There's not really a great deal to say here other than This is the dollar on a weekly time frame. I don't know why it's on the weekly. I must have been looking at something else. Yeah, it looks like it's going up. It looks like we're about to find a daily cycle low. And until such time as we get trend reversal, then I still say this is somewhat of a canary in the coal mine. Again, as always, nobody wants to see this more than I do. That will help give us more legs in the bull market. That will help push all these assets into real, true parabolic blow-off tops, and we'll all get extremely rich from that. But for now, I cannot possibly just say, oh, I'm going to call the top here, or I expect further downside, when this is clearly a very, very powerful uptrend until the market proves us otherwise. First sign of reversal would be some kind of trend line breakdown, okay? But again, then we need to see failed cycles thereafter to confirm it. I think the dollar's stronger than most people are willing to accept, and I also think that this is probably going to cause some short-term headwinds unless this thing can reverse sharply. Other than that, of course, we're in the window to see some cycle low bounces, and we're long just in case we're wrong on the idea that things are breaking down in the stock market. And as I already showed you for Bitcoin, right, we're double long, we're double strong, we've set a third and final blow-off top angle, and we are hoping to get some big, strong push in line with that whole yellow fractal idea of mine from many, many months back. So I'll update you tomorrow when I've got something to say after we've seen some further price action in the charts. Other than that, wishing you all a wonderful week. I'm your boy Camel. Until next time, take care. Cheers. Bye.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see. Rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame. Sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel Finance got the markets key, taking a stormy